Hi everyone, it's Danny. Welcome back to another Cocoa Vanilla Studio Design Team project. Today I'm making my first layout with the gorgeous new Joyful collection, and I have this little photo collage of my littlest one. This was right at the beginning of December. She's playing in the rain. As you can see, it was nice and warm. It's summer here at Christmas time, so don't worry. But she has on that little Christmas dress, and while this photo is not inherently Christmassy, it was definitely right around that time, and it does have that memory connected to it for me. So I'm using this collection, and you'll see mostly what I use for this layout is not super Christmas specific. There's only one thing I add that is definitely Christmas themed, I think, and that will be a really good lead into Christmas layouts in this year's album. So I've gone through and I've pulled out that pattern paper background. I really love how it kind of looks a little bit like falling snow, which fits just right along with the rain that's falling. And then I've gone through the paper pad and I pulled out this lovely mustard patterned paper with that Merry and Bright script, and I'm just using that as a photo mat, and I'm going through and distressing the edges of that just to give a little bit more texture. Then I'm going to pull out some tissue paper. This is just some pink tissue paper out of my stash, and I'm going to add a double layer of that just to add a little bit of softness and extra texture. So I'm just folding that over, and then I'll just chop it out roughly and then finish up the edges a little bit more neatly. And you can see I've done that photo. It is a 4x6 photo, and I've just created that as a collage. So I have 3 images of her all on the one page, but it's still just one photo. Really cuts down on time and mucking around adding multiple photos. So I'm going to come in with the gorgeous gold puffy titles. I just love these. They're so beautiful. And I'm going to use Joyful Day, and I'm just popping that along the edge of my photo, overlapping with my photo and just falling off the edge slightly. And that just sums up her at this moment in time. She loves the rain so much, so she was super chuffed. So here I have a bunch of stars. These are all fussy cut out from that beautiful star pattern paper. By the way, all the names of the papers and everything I use will be up on the blog, so make sure you check the description box for that if you want to know all the details. But I've just gone through and fussy cut pretty much a whole pattern paper of those stars, and then as you can see on the top right there, I have a bunch of the smaller stars off the A5 paper stack. So I don't use them all in this layout, of course, but I have heaps to use, and stars are just so easy to use. They're one of those really universal shapes that you can squeeze in anywhere, so definitely handy to have. And it did not take me long at all to fussy cut all these because they're such a regular polygon shape. So what I'm doing here is I'm just sticking some of these stars to pattern paper and cutting them out at kind of offset, so it has that layered bordered feel to it. So I've tried to pick colors that are as contrasting as possible. So I put that light pink on the dark green and that light pink on the deeper mustard color kind of thing, so you get that real sense of three-dimensionalness. Three-dimensionality is the word I'm looking for. So I'm just positioning these around the page, auditioning, if you will, trying to decide where I want to place things. I want to get a good mix of sizes and colors. I'm going to stick my photo down at this point. I'm just using adhesive tape, and I'm not putting it right to the edge for a reason you will see very shortly. I almost always don't put my adhesive right to the edge of my photo because I like to tuck embellishments around in and underneath the edges. So now I am pulling out my strings, and I kind of wanted to do like almost like a bauble style, like hanging bauble style layout, but with stars, and almost like they're kind of like decorations, but they're almost just falling from the sky, which fits in really well with the whole rainy day theme I have going on here. So I am just using some of these strings on these layered stars, and I am separating the layers, as you can see, and gluing that thread or twine straight to the bottom layer, and then sticking my top layer on top. And that way I don't have to punch any holes or tie anything together, and you can't see where the thread or the twine is adhered. So it's all nice and neat and tucked away. That worked out really well. And so I'm using a combination of a red and white baker's twine, a jute twine, and this one I'm using, it's really difficult to see on camera, but it's just a really fine gold thread. And I'm just sticking those on with tacky glue. It does come out already slightly tacky, so that works really well for sticking. They don't adhere permanently straight away, but it's definitely good for holding things in place for a few seconds while the glue dries. So I have a pretty good idea of how I want these now. So I'm going to start peeling off that foam that I backed those stars with. The ones that aren't layered, I just added a piece of foam behind. And the ones that are layered, I'm just sticking down with a dab of tacky glue behind. And I'm trying to vary the lengths of the strings and the positioning of the stars so that they're kind of falling either side of the photo. And it's hard to see now, but I will end up with almost 3 clusters of stars. So I have 2 going at the moment, 1 on each side of the photo, and I will end up with 1 at the bottom. So right now I am just tacking down the tops of those threads and twines that I've used to make sure that they are nice and taut. I don't really want a lot of slack in the thread before I secure it over the back of the page. So I'm just using a little bit of tacky glue to tack the top of those strings down. I don't want to use a whole line of glue because you would be able to see it, but just using a little dab, a tiny little dab just to hold it in place really works well. And then once I have got that length exactly right, I can trim off the tops and then secure them permanently over on the back of the layout. So this jute twine came off the roll nice and curly, and I really liked how that looked on the layout, and it varies up those shapes of the threads falling down, so it's not all just kind of straight lines. So I'm trying to keep as much of that as I possibly can. So now I'm adding some stars at the bottom of my photo. I just felt like I needed a little something extra down the bottom, and I was really trying to get that kind of third cluster. I think that's what was kind of bothering me about the layout. Which it's not a hard and fast rule, but sometimes if your eye is not liking the page, that could be a reason why. So I've just added a few stars at the bottom there, and I am going to show you what I'll do with those threads. They're just kind of hanging there at the moment. But first I want to fill in some of these empty spaces with more stars, so I have pulled out these gorgeous puffy gold glitter stars, and I'm going to use 3 of those just to create that sense of balance. And I'm tucking them in just in those empty spaces and adding a blob of tacky glue on the back. This works really well to stick these down. I find they didn't want to stay to start with, but once I held them there for a few seconds, they are pretty firmly stuck down now, so I'm happy with that. So these threads I'm just snipping off a little longer than the bottom of my photo, and then lifting up the edge of my photo and tucking them underneath with a blob of tacky glue. So that is a good reason why I would not have wanted to stick my photo down all the way to the edge. Now I'm able to lift up the edge enough so that I can squirt some glue under there and then tuck my strings away nice and secure. And this one, you can see I added a string going all the way to the top of the page, but the others I just had falling out the bottom of the photo. So I've snipped off those threads. I haven't shown it on camera, but I've just snipped them off about 1 inch longer than the top of the page, folded them over the back, and then added some glue and a strip of washi tape to each one, and they are not going anywhere. I am now just tucking in some of those smaller stars to fill in some of those empty spaces, and it's always good to have some things falling off the edge of the page like that. I did add a bunch of these puffy stars as well from the titles page. Unfortunately, my camera did cut out filming those, but I added 3 of those to each of my star clusters. Added this fa la la chipboard just because I love it there. It fit perfectly in that space, and I really did just want to make it clear that this is a Christmas page. And then finally I will add one of the stickers off the accessory sticker sheet that has a star on it. It just fits really nicely in this blank space down there, and that is my layout finished. So I really hope you enjoyed joining me today. Make sure you check the description box for the link to the blog post and the Coco Vanilla Studio Facebook group, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.